Hello, a bit of an odd one this time. While searching around online I came across this. The Amiga 500 stereo headphone adapter. See? It's all still sealed in its box, and my guess is it's probably exactly what it says it is, some kind of stereo headphone adapter for your Amiga 500. But I also noticed it supports 2 players and includes a set of headphones. Something about this made me curious, so I decided to purchase it. I think what I want to know is this just a normal stereo amplifier? And if that's the case, what's with the D connector you can just see there? The Amiga is well known to have a strange audio separation for stereo, and some games take advantage of this, providing the stereo effect, but for other games it just sounds wrong. So in this video we're going to take a look at this and maybe pull it apart. I thought I'd start it with a close-up of the package that shows the simple box with the volume control and the 2 headphone sockets. Coming out of the back is a cable with some kind of D connector. Well, that either goes in the serial port or the RGB port. My guess is the serial port, possibly to power it. Coming out from that D connector are also 2 phono connectors for the left and right audio. Turning the box over, we can see a list of features, allowing 2 players to listen, comes with a free set of headphones, a volume control, and a 12-month guarantee. Somehow I imagine that expired long ago. We can also see this was part of the Add Extra range, which included several other Amiga and Atari related upgrades. Towards the bottom we can see the Centresoft logo. This was distributed by Centresoft, a games company that started in 1983 and still makes brand new games today. So let's take a look inside. First, peeling off the plastic wrapping. And this box was surprisingly difficult to get into. Maybe it's just the age of the cardboard. And what's inside? Well, several things. Now this is very interesting, a random loose wire. Anyway, there's this pamphlet listing some games available by US Gold. In some ways this is probably more valuable than the actual product, as this little booklet was probably thrown away by most people. How many of these games do you recognise? Now onto the amplifier. Well, it doesn't look exactly like the picture on the box. The markings on the front are different and it's smaller than I thought it would be. Something about this makes me feel it was possibly homemade. There's a few strange burn marks on the case which I can't explain. Onto the headphones? Well, these look just like any other headphones of the era, the sort that you would have gotten with a Walkman for example. Now there's no instructions in the box, so I'm sure I can figure out how to connect it up. So the first thing I want to do is try the headphones out. I'm going to connect this up to my Amiga 500 and then load Turrican II, as it has an absolutely awesome soundtrack. Now I know you can't hear this, and I have to say the audio sounds horrible. Where's the bass gone? Now I'm going to clip these headphones around a microphone so you can hear just how tinny they are. I don't think this has anything to do with the Amiga, this is just these terrible headphones. I suppose that's what you get for a free pair. Now in the headphones it does sound like I can hear the left and right audio just like it would come from the Amiga. So I'm going to connect up player 2 and record some of that so you can hear it. Well, the sound quality's okay, and yes, it sounds just like it would have come from the Amiga anyway. So this really just is an amplifier. Well, that was a little disappointing. I guess I was kind of hoping it might work a bit like the BaseMX board that you can buy. This board has a very simple but smart design, and allows you to keep the normal stereo separation for the higher frequencies, but then it also filters and combines the lower frequency sounds so they play more central. This makes a lot of sense for your ears because they can't tell the direction that low bass frequencies normally come from, and we'll take a look at this a little later on. So, anyway, let's pull this thing apart and see what makes it tick. So inside this box we have a small PCB with a few capacitors and a few chips. Those chips are 748 op amps, which makes sense. And the date code on them shows that they were manufactured in 1984, which gives us some idea of when this device was made. Now onto the D connector. Well, inside it's wired up to 3 of the pins, with the audio signals just going back up the cable. Here's a close-up of the back, and here's a close-up of the front, which I've flipped because with the magic of computers I can overlay the tracks from the back. With this information I was able to reverse engineer the PCB, which gave us this schematic. The connection to the serial port was just to get access to plus and minus 12 volts, allowing this circuit to run from a dual rail supply. Now most of this circuit looks fairly normal, although I'm not an expert in audio amplifier design, and I've never seen DC blocking capacitors with quite such high values. This section is a little strange, as from what I understand this is typically done when running these from a single rail power supply. Also, this pattern of resistors is a little strange too. So what do I think it should have been like? Well, as I mentioned before, I think it should have been like the BaseMX, or is that BaseMix? Well, anyway, I have one here, so let's take a closer look. And as you can see, it's nicely packaged in a box with a logo and a website address on it. Inside we find a USB power connector, as this needs 5 to 12 volts. Inside this anti-static bag we find the actual PCB, and it's easy to wire up, literally input and output. Now I could reverse engineer this, but that's not very fair to the developer, and also there's a great amount of detail regarding its operation already on their website, so let's test it out. So I've wired it up and I've pre-recorded some music from the Amiga with and without the BaseMX device, and I'm going to play this here and I'll swap between the two so you can compare the difference. If you're listening in mono then you might as well skip this section. So, first, here's the original. Now the BaseMX. And back to the original. The BaseMX again. And back to the original. And finally back to the BaseMX. It's very subtle, but I can definitely hear the difference, and I'm sure you can. Especially with a good set of headphones or a good sound system, I think this could make a real difference. That BaseMX device is really interesting. The headphone amplifier? Well, that's a really random piece of hardware, and I wonder how many of these units actually got sold, as I can't really imagine it was required that much. Maybe that explains why it was still sealed in plastic. The BaseMX device, however, well, you can buy that right now as it's a new product. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.